Everybody, to Gardening, Preserving, and Learning, a 25-minute show keeping you in the know. I am your host, Joy Baird. The show is presented to you by the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and by Canning What You Grow, a series hosted on this very channel each Friday as we venture into Holly's kitchen as she teaches us how to can more of what we grow, and sometimes even freezing if canning is not available to you. Well, we travel and we're down to the south today to meet with an individual who is the president of the Birmingham Rose Society, and he's a very active participant in the American Rose Society. He is one of the hosts of Rose Chat, which can be heard each Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio. It is the only radio program dedicated to the rose. Welcome to the program, Chris VanCleave. His website is also redneckrosarian.com, and now we've placed in the show notes following the live broadcast. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how's it going? It's good to be here. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad you've taken time out of your busy schedule to join us, as well as take us into your rose garden.
Yeah, we're actually here tonight. I'm sitting outside in our rose garden, and thought it would be a unique backdrop for the show to actually, a lot of people who blog, sometimes they don't grow roses or they don't grow the plants that they write about, but I'm one of those people that actually grow what I write about. So wanted everyone to see a few of the blooms, at least in the background.
Now, you grew up in a homestead where you canned vegetables, and it wasn't just till a few years ago you got into roses. What caused you to do that transition to become enthused in roses and then end up being the president of the Birmingham Rose Society?
Well, I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and my family, my mom and my dad both grew up in very rural areas of Tennessee and Mississippi. And, they came from families that canned and preserved. And, my grandparents always said, well, we're putting all this stuff up for the winter. And I never really thought too much about that. It was just a way of life for us until became an adult. And now I sure do miss those bread and butter pickles. And my grandmother made pickled watermelon rind, and it was so good. And it was like everybody mentioned it, but so background in farming, vegetable gardening, I guess you could say, and my mom always grew roses too, and she had a knack for growing roses. We had roses at our home when I was growing up, and she always had me out in the garden helping her. I can remember 12, 13 years old, she would be out there with her pruners just hacking these roses, down within probably 12 inches of their life. And I'd say, Mom, are you okay? Is it okay to cut them that far down? And she said, well, you've got to cut them back. So when I got married, and my wife and I bought our first home, and we had a neighbor that lived across the street that was just mean as a snake. She was about 85 years old and very grumpy, and there was a joke that people would dress up like her for Halloween in our neighborhood. She was so mean. But I told her one time I wanted to grow some knockout roses that were just coming on the market at that time, and she said, well, I don't know why you'd want to do that. She said, you don't take care of the roses that you have. And I said, well, I don't have any roses. She said, you've mown over one ever since you moved there. I had indeed been mowing over a giant climber up against the side of our house, and she showed me where it was, and I actually began to cultivate that stump in the ground, and it grew into about an 8-foot climber before the end of that summer. It just proved to me the resiliency of the rose. So, from there it just sort of took off, and that was 15, 16 years ago, and since then we've just been planting and growing and enjoying. I'll tell you a little bit about some of the roses that we grow in our garden. We have a variety, really a little bit of everything here in our garden. We garden in Zone 8A, which we live a little bit south of Birmingham, Alabama, in a little town called Helena. It's a little bedroom community of about 17,000 people in here. And there are probably 65 or 70 different varieties in our garden. We have everything from old garden roses to some of the beautiful David Austin roses, which are the big cabbage type roses that you see lots of brides seem to be so fond of these days. And we have about 10 shrubs of those, as well as I cut a few stems tonight. I've got this with me tonight. This is actually a floribunda called Julia Child. Was named after the famous chef, and today's her birthday. So she's not with us anymore, but she certainly picked out a most beautiful rose from Leaf's Roses. And I said she selected this particular rose because it looked like scrambled eggs. So I thought that was sort of interesting. This is a floribunda rose. Floribundas are roses that you have a single stem. See, that's a single stem, but you get multiple blooms on it, which a lot of people who want lots of color in their garden plant floribundas because you get a fantastic display of blooms. Here in the Deep South, we get 4 to 5 flushes per year. This is actually a hybrid rose that is called, which is a very large hybrid tea. It's white with pink tips. It's one of the top exhibition roses in the nation, actually. It's if you exhibit roses in rose shows, which I want to encourage everybody to go out to a local rose show in their community. Whether you exhibit your roses or not, go and see what's available there. It's a great way for you to be able to see what can be grown in your area.
Now, for a vegetable gardener like myself, what advice or what would you encourage me to make space in my vegetable gardening to incorporate roses? Why is it so important, in your opinion, in your mind, for everyone to incorporate roses into their garden and their landscape?
When you sort of think about, why somebody should grow roses, roses are a national flower. We definitely want to encourage everyone as a member of the local Rose Society and the American Rose Society to plant a rose in their garden. Roses are very sustainable now. Developments in roses have come a long way since the 1950s and 60s, when you were almost required to spray the roses that you had in your garden. But, the hybridizers are now creating roses that require very little spray. Roses being edible, you can actually eat roses. And multiple cookbooks available today that, with recipes on how to prepare roses, anywhere from ice creams and sorbets to salads. We often take the blooms of Julia Child and put them in salads. It makes the salad more attractive to eat, and also it tastes good too.
Now, are there some roses that are more easier to grow than others?
Well, there are various types of roses that are easier to grow than others. I would start out, if you do not have any roses in your garden now and you want to begin to grow roses, I definitely would suggest that you try one of the knockout roses or one of the drift series roses that are available today. They are virtually foolproof. You plant it in the ground, you water it in for the first month, and then you let it go. And all of them grow without any spray, and they get huge if you let them. We had 2 shrubs of red knockout last year that they got over 7 foot tall and about 4 foot wide, and we gave them a very severe pruning this spring, and they're now about 4 foot high each. So there are definitely roses on the market today that are much easier to grow than others. There are, people. We all have choices in our life, and a lot of people choose to spray pesticides and chemicals in their garden, and we have come over the years to learn that that's not such a good thing for the environment, and we have weaned ourselves off of chemicals, and we have a rose garden that blooms beautifully. One of the things we love is our screened-in porch, which is just to my left every morning, and drink coffee and watch the birds and the hummingbirds and the butterflies and the bees in our garden. And we noticed years ago when we sprayed that they disappeared after we sprayed, and that really bothered us. And we were convicted about that and decided to halt our spray program and just let our roses grow. And we find that over time, if you allow any plant to grow without chemical pesticides, that it will increase and will be a very healthy plant for you. You know, I'm probably, Joey, I'm probably one of the most impatient people in the world, and gardening has taught me patience. That you definitely need patience to watch these roses grow and develop into the very best plants that they can be, and they bring my family many hours of great joy.
Right now, how can if I want to grow roses, how can I grow them? Can I grow them from a seed, from a cutting, or can I even do it at all? Are they copyrighted?
You can grow roses by seed, and it's also pretty easy to grow roses by cutting. You can take your cuttings either early in the spring or late in the fall of the year, and you want to take. I'll sort of show you here. You take a cutting from this plant. You'd want to take your cutting from the center, not at the bottom and not at the top. So you take your cutting in the middle. You put it down in your rooting hormone, and it should root. We do that with a lot of our old garden roses. There is a rose in our garden called Old Blush. We have a lady in our Rose Society here who has a rose bush that she has had for about 70 years. And I think her husband told me they had given away probably 40 or 50 cuttings, and they know of about 20 of those roses that are still alive. Have to be careful too about about rooting cuttings from some of the modern hybrids. Those have copyright, and we want to talk just a minute about the colors of roses. And there's probably almost every color of the rainbow. There's not a black rose and there's not a blue rose. The genetics just doesn't allow for it. So, although there are people who are hybridizers who are ardently trying to achieve that blue or black rose, but you can see in the background in my garden we have a variety of colors. I love white roses. They're a beautiful. They make a beautiful statement in your garden. People love them as cut flowers, and we have quite a few shrubs of white. Yellow is a very popular color as well. We looked at the blooms of Julia Child a little bit ago, and I want to see yellow roses in the garden. Pink is very popular. There are more probably pinks and red roses than any roses available on the market today, but there are variations in color. And they all have a meaning as well. Red rose stands for love, and yellow is more a rose of friendship, and of course white would mean purity. And
can roses be very invasive in the garden? Do we have to be careful about that?
Yes, they definitely can be invasive. There are various rootstocks which in some parts of the country are really outlawed because they're invasive. They're considered invasive plants. And so you have to be careful with that. The multiflora rootstock is a once blooming rose that has a little red bloom on it, and it can be quite invasive. I was going to show you here. One of the other things is people will say to deadhead your roses below a 5-leaf set, and this is what they refer to when they call 5-leaf set. Most roses have 3 leaves at the top, up near the actual bloom itself, and then below you'll see 5. So if you go down this stem and you actually cut at a 5-leaf set, that's a good point too. And you would remove the bloom off of that particular shrub. That's just a little bit about caring for roses. Once you have them growing in your garden and you want to keep them blooming, one of the big secrets for repeat blooming roses is to deadhead them throughout the year. As soon as the blooms are spent, just go down below that 5-leaf set and snip them off. Don't be afraid to cut your roses.
Talk a little bit about how Rose Chat Radio began for those who want to listen to it.
Well, Rose Chat Radio got started about almost 2 years ago. The idea really came to me about 2 years ago. We started a chat on Twitter called Rose Chat. We started the Rose Chat hashtag, and we felt like there was a need in social media to bring solid information about growing roses. And we always join Garden Chat on Monday nights with Brenda Haas and the whole Garden Chat team, which is, from that came the idea for Rose Chat. Once Rose Chat got rolling, we had such a tremendous outpouring of participation for that. People were just hungry for information, and the idea came to me. Why not start a radio program about growing roses? We can communicate that positive information. A lot of times when you see articles and stories about roses in the media, it's some sort of a derogatory story. And it was important to me that when we started Rose Chat Radio that we project a positive message. We started, about a year and a half ago with the actual Rose Chat Radio podcast. We have had international guests on our show, from Michael Marriott, from David Austin Roses in England. The president of the American Rose Society, Jolene Adams, has been with us, as well as many other guests. Paul Zimmerman, who has a great new book out now called Everyday Roses that you can find at any bookstore or home and garden center. We're really about spreading information. We want to be a resource for people who are interested in growing roses, who are interested in sharing roses with the world around them.
What is the best advice you can give someone as a new grower?
Be sure and water your roses. It's very important that your roses get water. They don't like wet feet, but they do like to be watered. It's more important to deeply water your roses once or twice a week than it is to shallow water them every day.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the program and sharing your advice on growing roses. For people who want to find out more on growing roses, you can always visit the website redneckrosarian.com. That'll find all of Chris's information, and you can connect with him through all of his social media. And if you like what you see, feel free to hit that like button at the bottom of the page. Till next time, I'm Joy Baird, the Redneck Rosarian, and until next time, stay in the know so you're always prepared. See you next time, everybody.